Everybody. It seems that America is stuck, stuck, almost exactly a year ago, back in late February of 2025, did an interview with the Atlantic writer, Yoni Applebaum, about how America is stuck in a crisis of immobility. Back then, he had a book out. It's been a very popular, influential book called Stuck: How the Privileged and the Propertied Broke the Engine of American Opportunity. It's a critique of the problems with housing and real estate in the United States. And America, a year later, remains stuck. A year later, there's a new book out with the same title, Stuck: How Money, Media, and Violence Prevent Change in Congress. It's by my guest today, Maya Korngold. Maya, before we get into Congress, can we address this issue of stuckness, if there's such a word? I'm sure you're familiar with the Applebaum book. Is everything in America stuck? Not just Congress and real estate, but so many aspects of life. Of course, it's an issue that Ezra Klein writes about in his new book, Abundance.
Certainly. I mean, I think the fact that both Yoni and I chose this title is telling. I think a lot of people feel that our democracy is stuck, that it is not delivering for ordinary Americans. And we have seen that in so many of the recent election campaigns and social movements that have sprung up. People want the system to work better. And so my book is an attempt to look backwards in order to chart a course forwards, to understand how we got here, how we became so stuck, and to figure out how we can unstick Congress in particular in the case of my book.
So many other books have been written on this subject. Another book that's been very influential recently is Mark Dunkelman's Why Nothing Works: Who Killed Progress and How to Bring It Back. Dunkelman was also on the show, interesting character from Brown University. All you analysts, all you observers seem to have fallen on the same theme at the same time. I know your day job is at the Brennan Center for Justice. You're a senior fellow there. Why do you think everyone has woken up to this same problem at the same time in America?
Well, you know, I think that the books that you mentioned get at this same underlying feeling from different angles. So I can't speak to how they got there, but I can tell you that I've spent my entire career focused on how to make democracy work better for the people that it's meant to serve. And I think that this is a fire alarm fire for our democracy. And so in the fight for the future of our democracy, I think that there is a sense of urgency now. It's not that everything worked terrifically before. I'm a historical institutionalist. I've looked at Congress over the course of several centuries, and certainly it has not always functioned effectively. But right now, I think with everything we're seeing, with the executive abuse of power, with the threats to the future of our democracy, the title Stuck, the feeling, I think it's a sense of urgency and a call to action to take this situation seriously and to figure out a way to fix it.
Maya, it seems to me as if you drew the short straw in life by studying Congress. Your last book, and please don't be insulted by this, sounds incredibly boring. It's called Inside Congressional Committees: Function and Dysfunction in the Legislative Process. You're a smart woman. You got a PhD from Oxford. Why did you decide to dedicate much of your professional intellectual life to the study of Congress? Am I being unfair? Is it not incredibly boring?
Well, you know, I certainly agree with you and see that it is not the most popular institution. I mean, you don't have to look far to see that. All the polling shows how unpopular it is. The reason that I have dedicated my life to studying Congress, working with Congress, figuring out a way to make it work better is because it is the people's branch. I believe that it is the linchpin of American democracy and the branch of government that is most in tune with people, most connected to the people. And that is why I'm excited to study it. And, you know, to your earlier point about my first book, though, the title, I take your point. doesn't
Yeah,
do.
and I don't mean to be too unkind. I'm sure it's a brilliant book. It's just got a terribly boring title.
Point taken. I think the committee processes seem mundane to people, but what the point that I try to make frequently to people is that these processes matter. They matter. I think frequently what we see in the newspaper is just the most sexy, salacious thing that's happening with Congress, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you really want to understand an institution and how to fix it, you have to drill down. You have to look at the day-to-day. You have to look at, as I did in my first book, the legislative concourse that bills go through to passage. That's the committee process. You have to look at Congress 50 years back, how it got here, how we can move forward. That's my current book. And though my work is on Congress, it is a much broader message about what's wrong with our democracy. The subtitle of my new book is how money, media, and violence prevent change. Those are pervasive issues across American institutions. And so Congress, for me, is just a microcosm that I can look at that can speak to much larger distortions in our democracy and how we can fix them.
Yeah, and we'll get to the money, the media, and the violence in a few minutes. In the Dunkelman book, Dunkelman is sort of ambivalently nostalgic about Robert Moses, the great urban planner of New York, of course, the subject of Robert Caro's masterpiece, The Power Broker.
Yes.
Do you have equivalents of Robert Moses in Congress, Tip O'Neill, LBJ? When you think about Congress, do you look back to find congressmen, of course they tended to be men, who actually made a difference, who weren't stuck?
Certainly. So, I mean, firstly, obviously, I've read all of Robert Caro's books, including his books about LBJ, who was obviously a monumental figure in Congress. This book is based on conversations with dozens of former and current members of Congress, and it really showcases their work, their voices, and their strategies to be effective reformers. And so I look at, for example, folks like Henry Waxman, who was in Congress for 4 decades, and who I would describe as a congressional chameleon of sorts. He figured out how to navigate the system in a way that allowed him to really make the tobacco industry accountable, to pass monumental health and environmental legislation, to get things done in the 80s, even when he was working in a Congress where the Reagan administration was very much against many of the things that he was trying to push forward. So again, folks like that, folks who understand how to navigate the system in a savvy way and move forward their agenda and deliver for their constituents, those are folks that I think that we can learn from. And again, you don't have to look only to the past. I also showcase current members like Andy Kim, like Lauren Underwood, people who came to Congress recently and understood also how to